I do want to talk about practice acquisition because that is a conversation that and a topic that we see everywhere. Practice acquisition. We keep hearing if you pull up any trade mag, you're going to see the demographics. Advisors are getting older. Who's replacing them? Where's the new blood coming in? And I know that you just a second ago mentioned that you're looking to acquire. But what I was curious about, I want to have a conversation, is I know you've looked at a couple already, and you've waved yourself off, if you will. No thanks. Tell me a little bit about that process, what you were looking for, and then maybe since you didn't buy it, it's okay to say like why you didn't end up acquiring it.
Sure. So we've looked at two practices as far as purchasing them, and I will tell you, going into it, I was really naive, thinking, okay, well, it generates this kind of revenue, it's this and this, okay, X, and it's not that simple. It's a process. The last one I went through was probably about a 6-month to 8-month process of due diligence.
Oh, you were digging in.
Oh yeah, you have to, because if what I've learned from others is if it doesn't align like with your culture, your investment philosophy, those all have to align.
Go back to culture. So your culture or your client's culture? Because your clients are a certain style to you.
Yeah. I would say the culture of the practices have to be the same, right? Like how often you do reviews. How often is this firm you're trying to buy? What's the culture that they've created for their client experience? And if that culture is not the same, then I think you're setting yourself up for failure. So the culture has to align. From a practice perspective. So what's the current client used to getting, and is your offering going to be similar or the same, or maybe better? You would hope better. What's that going to look like? So you really have to spend a lot of time thinking about, okay, what are they doing now? What's the client used to?
Yeah.
So you got to kind of jump into the client chair and say, okay, who's Trinity Financial Group? What's going to change? And so you really have to do due diligence on that.
So as you're doing that, sorry to point, but as you're doing that, I'll do the politician thing with the thumb. You like that? I always do that. But as you're doing that, how do you do that? Like, do you go in as walk me through as if I was a new client, or how do you?
Yeah, so it's going to be an interview process in the sense you're going in, you're listening to their presentation, you're looking at what are you doing now for money for AUM managing? Are you fee based? Are you fee only? Are you talking insurance? Are you doing any kind of insurance at all? I mean, so you're literally at the planning table in that firm, and you're like, take me through, as if I'm a client, take me through your process. So you have to do that. What kind of products are they offering? What's when you walk into their reception area, what's it look like? What's it feel like?
Yeah.
Is that something that resonates? Is your office going to resonate with the firm, right, or with the client, potential client? So it's literally spending time in that practice.
Did they? So in the one that you looked at, did you find them or did they find you?
I found them, and that's the other thing too, is you have a lot of buyers out there. Yeah. Right? And you don't have a lot of sellers. And that's going to change, I think. You're going to see more and more people coming to the table because I think the average advisor, I don't know, I heard some like in their 60s or something to that effect.
Like that, yeah.
So you're going to see more and more turnover. So you have to be able to find that you have to be able to find that fit. And how I found this practice was actually our custodian, Schwab, had said, hey, and I dropped a note to my representative at Schwab and said, hey, if you know of anybody, and they said, well, we might know somebody. And so they kind of made a connection, and it was like this dating game. We went to dinner, me and this other individual, and we went to like a couple dinners, and then once he felt comfortable with me and I felt comfortable with him, he would open the door, and we just, we went down that road, and it's quite a process. So
as you were looking at that, one thing that I've had discussions with some other folks is the idea of, what is their CRM, their client records look like? Are they with their AUM? Are they in models that are easily manageable, or are they, some here and some here and some here?
Yeah, you have to look at, so we in order to scale, right, you kind of have to, the client has to kind of, there's you can't have 400 clients doing 400 different things, right? There has to be a theme with your practice. And so does that theme, if I'm going to buy this practice, what's the service look like to this practice? What kind of portfolios are they in? Are we doing individual stocks? Are we mutual fund only, ETFs? I mean, what's it look like? Who's building the model? Who's managing those portfolios? So you have to go through all that stuff. What's your average age, of the client? And, I remember looking at this book and saying, well, I'm going to cross out the lower half of this book. I mean, they're 75, 80 years old. Well, I mean, that's an older client, right? So that the age and the demographic of the book matters. Are they local? Or is this nationwide clients everywhere or around the world? I mean, what's their highest? And I remember asking him, hey, what's your hardest client? Tell me who your hardest client is, and tell me who your easiest client is. And so you have to go through. It's a lot of time and energy to ask those questions, because if you don't, it's not going to end well. I don't think the result's not going to be there for you.
So I'm curious for the answer to this question. So I get the sense that most advisors have never actually done a objective valuation of their practice. And so that when they think of their practice, the number that they think it's worth is just overinflated.
100%.
Is that what you ran into?
Yeah, it's what they have is worth, is gold, and what you've got is worth nothing, kind of a mentality. But yeah, you when I went back to them and said, okay, well, scratch this, scratch that, this is what we're looking at. Then the back and forth happens. Well, no, you got to listen to their point of view and their perspective on. Well, no, there is value in this, and so no, I don't see the value. There's no value for me. You might think there's value, but I don't see that value. And I think too, what people have to be willing to do, Dennis, is walk away. Don't try so hard, to fit that round peg in a square hole kind of a mentality. You have to be able to walk away. Yep. Because in the end, that's gonna save you time, money, and energy, right? So you have to be able to walk away. So ultimately, with this practice we're talking about, I ended up walking away because the numbers, we couldn't agree on the numbers, right? And I kind of drew a line in the sand, and I had to stick to that. And we were really close, I think, but it was, at the end of the day, it's, you got to have you got to draw the line in the sand.
That walk away point, I do have to say, since you have kids, you probably told them this, but I've always told my girls, especially if you're looking at cars or looking to buy something, you have to have a number where you can walk away. I also always tell them, never fall in love with something that can't love you back, because you end up.
That's good. That 100%.
Although I kind of love your truck, because you do have a pretty cool truck.
The truck is a good time. But yeah, you have to be able to walk away. Yeah. And if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And so that practice acquisition is something, again, we want to see in the future. Something else that I really like is the mentorship thing that I've done with some. Right now, I'm working with 2 different advisors where kind of they're coming under my process, and I'm teaching them and mentoring the process and the systems. They're in their 60s. Okay. So retirement, I mean, they can see that end game, and I'm going to help them develop and grow their practice. They're kind of under our umbrella, if you will. So it's going to be a smooth transition. So I'm excited about that, because, in 10 years when they want to walk, now I know what the book is. Yeah. I know everything about the book, and they're using our process. It's kind of the same theme, and so I think I'm excited about that, because I think that's going to be an easy transition. And we bring in a junior advisor to sit with these clients for a year and a half, as they see the transition and the retiring advisor going out. But hey, this person's going to take care of you. Nothing changes. We're not changing custodians. We're not changing our philosophy of investing. So I think there's opportunity for younger advisors like myself to find that firm that they have a 10-year runway with, let's say, and say, hey, let's work towards this, because it'll be beneficial, because I will pay a premium for a practice that's doing the same thing I am, right?
Absolutely.
It's worth more than someone I've got to go in there and change portfolios or models or whatever. Yep. So So I think that's a good model to have.
Do you see that as maybe as a better path towards growth than going in and acquiring a firm with all its warts?
I think if you had a firm that was really close to yours, so the answer is yes. Unless you can find that firm that the culture's there, the philosophy of investing is there, and the mantra is the same. If you find that kind of golden nugget,
Tall order.
yeah. So where you can align yourself with the firm today, and over this evolution, we'll call it a 10-year runway, you're thinking, okay, they're going to hear, it's going to look the same, sound the same, feel the same, so that transition is going to be easy. I mean, and ultimately there's going to be some clawback. There's going to be some people that just leave because it just happens. So you have to understand that. You're never going to probably get them all to transfer or to come over, but
not like if you buy a firm.
Yeah. So I think you want to be able to really consider, again, I think there's opportunity for all of us out there to align ourselves with that firm that kind of has that 10-year or less runway.
Yeah.
So
well, let me ask you this then. So as you, from the experience that you just had with this firm, if you were to look at another firm, what would be one big lesson you would take from that last experience as you would look at another firm?
I have a process now, and I learned this going through this last acquisition is like, okay, what's the first thing we need to identify? So I would say you need to have these identifying factors. Otherwise, you're wasting time. Right? So you want to have that drawn out to where, okay, this is what we're day one. This is what we're going to do, and check the box. And if we can't check that box, then nothing else matters, right?
Yeah.
So what I learned is you got to follow a process, and you're checking the box, and it probably save you some headache and time, because if this doesn't line up, if you can't check this box, then there's no need of going any further.
Yeah.
And now you're just wasting everybody's time.
Yep.
Right? And you're hoping that something evolves, but it's not going to. So that's what I learned is have a process, stick to that, check the box, okay, and it's going to move you through that process faster.
This podcast is for financial professional use only and not for use with the general public. The information provided is the exclusive property of Creative One and is protected by copyright and other intellectual property laws of the United States. This material has been prepared for informational and educational purposes only. It is not intended to provide, and should not be relied upon for, accounting, legal, tax or investment advice. Creative One is not responsible for the results of programs discussed on this podcast or any liability stemming from the use of it. Although we may promote or recommend the services offered by this company, agents are ultimately responsible for the use of any materials or services and agree to comply with the compliance requirements of their broker-dealer and registered investment advisor, if applicable, and the insurance carriers they represent. Copyright 2022, Creative One Marketing Corporation.